Alright class, here's your first lecture video. Just looking at some of our learning objectives real quick. Learning objective 1.2, I can explain and provide examples of independent, dependent, and control variables of an experiment. So that's what you guys are doing in the practice. That's what I want you guys to be able to do. This learning objective, you need to pick out the independent, dependent, and controls. 1.3, I can identify the independent, dependent, and control variables of a given experimental data. You also need to be able to do that. So actually that would be the practice. This would be what we did in the lab. 1.4, I can properly label and identify the independent and dependent variables on the X and Y plane. We haven't got that far yet, but we soon will get that far. Looking at the scientific method, so the question, hypothesis, you guys are pretty familiar with those so far, so these are just some examples that I've had in the past. But you guys are trying to pick out independent variable, dependent variable, and control variable. So independent variable, those are the things, so you can kind of keep this as a reminder, that's the thing that I change in the experiment. I meaning either whoever's doing the experiment. If it's a scientist, if it's you guys, or if it's me, it's a thing that you're in control of. You want to see how that affects something. So that's the independent variable. You can kind of think of it this way. The independent variable starts with an I, and that's the thing that I change in the experiment. So that might be a good way to remember that. The dependent variable, that is the thing that depends on what you do to the independent variable. So that's the resulting variable. So whenever you change the independent variable, you're looking for how it changes the dependent variable. That's the result there. Example of that would be, let me draw a little picture here. If I had a faucet here, so this is my faucet, and so I wanted to see how much, if we're looking to see how much water actually comes out of the faucet, so this is just a simple example here, what would be our independent variable? That would be how far we turn the knob, right? So if we turned it a lot, we're going to get a lot of water coming out, more of a flow. So that would be our independent variable. How much, that's what we are changing in the experiment. We're changing how far we turn it. Dependent variable would be how much water it comes out. So if we turned it a lot of water would come out. If we turned it a little, just a little water would come out. Example of a control in this, control in this experiment would be maybe the water pressure in your house, how much water is actually coming out of it. You guys did a good job in the lab of figuring some things out about independent, dependent variables. We figured out that there could be more than one independent variable, but how many do we want to change at one time? We just want to change one at a time, right? That way we can tell that that is the variable that is affecting our dependent variable. So good job on that. Doing the examples, so controls, that's what we want to keep the same. You guys do have some example problems. I'm going to go through one and kind of talk about it real quick, and then the second one I want you guys to figure out and answer in the forum below. So the first one, an investigation was done to see if keeping the lights on for different amounts of time each day would affect the number of eggs. So what's our independent variable? That's the thing that we are changing. So that would be the amount of time we left the lights on, right? So the amount of time we left the lights on. So I'm kind of writing this down really fast, but I want you guys to kind of slow down and have good handwriting so I can read it. The dependent variable, what is that affecting? It's affected the number of eggs the chickens lay, right? So number of eggs the chickens lay. And what are some controls? Might be, I'm not going to write these down, but it might be how much feed you give them, how much water you give them, how much exercise they have each day. Those might be examples of things that you want to keep the same in the experiment, so you know that those variables are not affecting your experiment. It's just this independent variable, just the amount of time the lights are left on. Alright, so the next question, I want you guys to pause the video. This is the one that I want you guys to work through and just slow down, read through it, find out what the independent variable is, the dependent, and the controls. Alright, well, we'll talk about this in class next time and figure out what you guys came up with.